Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming down and to try and extract as much knowledge out of Warwick as possible. That's the aim of tonight. Judging by the people in the room, I think there should be some good questions for you, Warwick. So thank you very much for coming down to talk about.
Thank you very much for coming. Okay, first off, I've got a few questions. One is, how many attended last year's sailing Lamma presentation by Jamie? 1, 2, 3. I watched the video, right? Yeah. I watched the video. All right.
Is that all wrong?
It was very good. I actually had a look at it myself and refreshed my memory a few days ago. That was very good. I have one controversial thing to separate my presentation from his, but we'll come to that. But that's good. Just curious to know. So a lot of you are new to the subject. And also the difference of when I'm talking about things, it's a bit hard to generalise for different classes. So I noticed there's a few HL sailors here, there's some J80 sailors here, sports boats, flying 15s, Impala's big boats, flying 15, yeah, we did them, right. So if I start saying something about a tuning thing or something, and you're not too sure what it means for your class, please interrupt me and I'll try and explain things. I know some boats are different to others, but the Dragons, Flying 15s, Dragons, Etchels and sports boats are similar in most respects for the tuning, but Flying 15s are different. So sometimes I might say something that might be different from Flying 15s. So just, if you think I'm saying the wrong thing, quiz me. And please feel free to ask questions along the way, because it's not a big presentation, but it's fairly concise. And so that's what if we're on a particular subject, it's best to ask the questions at the same time, then rather than leave it till the end. Okay, so racing and Lamma. Last year was a Lamma one and there was a harbour racing one, so they're just very different. The main difference is flat water and rough water. Now, of course, in Lamma you can have flat water. So if you do get those conditions, which we don't get too often, but sometimes you get light winds and it's flat, you'll be sailing very similarly to how you would sail in the harbour. With rig setups and the same, you did the same thing. But generally, in Lamma, we're sailing, particularly this time of the year, the northeast monsoons in, and we're getting nor'easters, we're getting a swell coming through, and we've got choppy conditions, waves, and it's just different to sailing in the harbour. So this is why we're particularly concentrating on this. I'll just sort of mention that. Yeah, so basically, I just said that. It's your setups in the harbour are flat water, and occasionally you get the waves from the boats going through here, but you just quickly adjust for that momentarily, and you keep sailing in flat water, so it's no different. Okay, so in the harbour often we're doing sailing high and trying to work shifts and got landfalls and boats and yellow buoys which you can't go inside and things. So it's a different sailing. So out in Lamma it's a bit of an open racetrack, and so basically you've got to have boat speed. You've got to go fast, and you've got to make sure that the waves don't dominate your boat. So if you're going fast, the boat speed will break apart the waves and make it much easier to get through the waves, and you can maintain speed. If you're sailing along and you're going high and slow and you hit a wave, you'll stop. And you've noticed this, you just stop dead. And it takes a while. You've got to ease sails and bear off and get going again. And that's a big slowdown, and you can lose 3 or 4 boat lengths to your opposition when that happens. So you've got to try and maintain your speed. So you don't want to be pointing and going slow, you want to be going fast. So the whole purpose of sailing out Lamma is the objective is go fast. Get your boat speed. So to do that, your setup's got to be different than sailing in the harbour. The main thing is, in the harbour you can sail very tight leaches, flat water, there's no waves impeding you really. So but in the Lamma you've got the waves, and so you've got to have slightly fuller sails and twisted leeches. It's an excellent example of this superbly trimmed petrels that I happen to be sailing on. But you can see from the thank you Richard for finding this. You can see there's quite a bit of twist on the leech, and that's only going up to the spreader, so it's still the leech and the jib's still twisting off further up. And the mainsail you can see is quite hooked in down low with the travel above centreline, but then it's twisted off and it's doing a similar twist with the jib as it goes up. So it's quite a significant twist in both sails there, but both sails are reasonably full. Right? So they're not flat, they've got a bit of fullness to them. And it's a great photo to sort of describe what I'm talking about. You want to try and get more fullness in the main, so often on most boats, Etchells particularly, we move the mast heel forward to make the mainsail a bit stiffer, and it also tightens the forestay. You don't want to have a saggy forestay in waves, because that's very bad. You can appreciate if you've got your sheeting of your quill of your jib in tight, and the forestay sags, the wind's just going to push the boat over. It's going to make the boat heel. The leech will tighten up, the forestay goes slack, the leech gets tighter, you just trip over. You heel over, and go slow. So you really want to have a tighter forestay in Lamma as you're going through the waves. You don't want that forestay to be bouncing around at all. You want it stiffer. So you've got to do certain things to make that stiffer. So on Etchells we move the mast heel forward, and we pull a bit of more backstay on. On a flying 15, I was thinking it's different. You haven't got a backstay, so often in waves you'd be putting more vang on to try and tighten up your forestay to keep it. So your main sheet tension is important as well.
Warwick, one of my strange things going when I sailed Etchells for a while was this idea of the slack forestay. 15s had the rig on tight all the time. You put the ram on to keep the mast straight and keep the main quarter that way.
Yep, so you can do that. But so you can, well some boats, some classes, I think even 5 you can adjust your forestay for different wind conditions.
You adjust the tension, yeah. You don't, on the whole, let it off.
Invariably, as much as you try and tighten the rig, the leeward shroud's often floating around in a breeze. There's only so much you can tighten the rig. And I agree with trying to stiffen your mast is a good thing because it makes everything else more stable. A lot of flying 15s bend their mast, so they'll actually let their ram go forward to flatten their sails. Yeah, and they're overpowered. So it's true, there's a balance for it. But the objective really is for when it's getting, I guess, sort of 15 knots and above, you want that forestay pretty tight. You don't want that forestay to be moving.
If you put the vang on, doesn't that take the twist out of the top or not?
It does a bit actually, yeah. It does. It can tighten your leech a bit.
Leave twist?
If it's a balance. So if it's really windy, the pressure of the wind is going to twist that sail anyhow. But it's the vang on is going to push the mast forward. The boom's going against the mast, pushing it forward. It'll flatten the main, but it'll also keep some tension of that on the forestay. I'm a big believer. There's two thoughts when you're going upwind on boats, whether you use your traveller or your main sheet. If you have a good vang on, then you can use your traveller and just play it down, and you use the mainsail as a bit of a gate. Some people use main sheet tension to control the twist of the sail and try and use backstay. If you've got backstay, flying 15s haven't, but everyone else play your backstay going upwind and create the twist that way. But your objective, if it gets windier on a keel boat with a backstay, you can just pull that on, create the twist that way. It'll tighten your forestay automatically. Flying 15, I really believe you've got to keep your main sheet tension on quite tight. So if you get the gust response, you've got to drop traveller and keep your vang on.
For those boats that don't have travellers, what do you do? Because a lot of the boats don't have travellers now on 15s.
Yeah, that's true. Well then, you've got to, if you're using the main sheet, the boom will go up, right? So that's why you need the vang on to try and keep the leech twist controlled. and you just got to drop your main sheet. I guess there's nothing else for it. And then it's in your hand the whole time so you pull it back on. But the objective is to try and keep the forestay tight, because your jib sheet's usually cleated and it's locked in, so that clew and lower leech of your jib can't move. It's rigid, it's fixed. If your forestay sags with it, the air's going to hit the jib side on, it's not going to flow through, it's not going to escape easily, so it's going to heel you over, and heeling's not going to. You want to sail your flying 15s fairly flat in the breeze. You don't want to be heeled over at all. So on the keel boat you can heel a bit, it's okay. You're trying to stop this heeling.
Warwick, what do you do with the bottom of the jib in the nature? You lift the top off.
Okay, there's a few things. One is you'd be pulling a bit more cunningham on the jib. So it's a tack adjustment on Etchells have it. I think the Dragons have it as well. Some flying 15s I have seen have it, and I think it's an excellent adjustment. I think it's much better adjusting the tack of your jib rather than the jib halyard tension. I think it's a much better adjuster. I've seen it in some flying 15s in the UK. I haven't seen any in Hong Kong with a Cunningham adjuster on the jib. I have seen it before. And it goes through inside the furler and comes back on through. That's the one thing. So more tension down the luff will put some tension on the sailcloth at the luff. It will release the leech. That will happen automatically. You can move your jib cars back. On the Etchells they often have tracks which are easily adjustable. Dragons have a floating block, so they can adjust that. Flying 15s, you can adjust your jib cars easily, so for heavier winds you could come back a bit more, sheet more along the foot, have a bit more twist to the leech of your jibs. Sports boats, I don't know what you got. You've got adjustable jib cars as well.
JATC.
Oh, sorry, same thing. Okay, so basically what you're trying to do is have some fullness with twist in waves. Because the waves are hitting you and you try not to stop the boat, and if your leech is tight, you'll stagger, you won't keep the speed on. So you've got to keep the momentum going, and you want some fullness down low to get power to get through the waves. So you're trying to keep it. So you may ease your outhaul a little bit and make your mainsail a little bit fuller. Down low, still have the twist. You don't max out your outhaul going uphill in the lighter winds. If it's over 15 knots, you've got enough power then to, your sail's full enough, you're trying to flatten sails a bit then, but in the 8 to 15 knot range, you might be having your outhaul in a bit to put a bit of fullness down low. Okay. The other thing is tacking. I saw Jamie's article last year. He mentioned he wasn't too sure when to tack. I'm a big proponent in waves to turn tack going up the wave. You find flat water. There is sets of waves come through. Surfers always talk about 7 waves in a row. There's a set of waves, and then there's a lull, and there's another set of 7 waves. If that's what the Australian. But so there's always some sort of flatter water out there. There might have been a ship that's gone past in the Lamma channel. It might have flattened some water out for a little section. So if you can do your tack in that flatter water, good thing, because the waves will stop you if you tack right in a big wave that's coming at you. The other thing is the other nice way to tack is you're naturally getting drawn up a wave. There's a wave rolling through. If you're getting drawn up, turn your boat up into the wind at the top, going up the wave. The crest of the wave you should be pretty much in irons, and then you sail down the back of the wave on starboard tack. Oh, sorry, I'm going to start this way. So you're trying to keep the boat's motion, keep the boat in the water. Try not to let the boat, if the boat launches out of a wave, you're going to come down hard and pound and stop. So you try to keep the boat in contact with the wave and try and turn it up over the crest, head to wind, and go sail down the back of the wave as it rolls through. That way you should maintain a lot of speed. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, in Lamma we're often doing 2 mile beats or something. We've got longer courses than what we have in the harbour here. So you've usually got time. So if you're trucking along and you think you're on a reasonable shift and you think you want to tack, but it's not an opportune time. Wait till you've got a time. You've got a little bit more time to do your tacks. You don't have to tack as frequently out of Lamma as you do in the harbour, usually. So you've got a bit more time. So even if you have to sail through a header and come out the side, and then you're to the left again, and then you've got a header, then you go. You might delay it. It might be better off than losing a lot of speed in the tack. Okay, yeah. All right, yeah, this is pretty obvious for a lot of the sailors. Try and get them to max weight. I think the Flying 15 fleet, you guys sail on lighter weights in the harbour. You need some more weight out of Lamma. You really need the power and the hike out hard and keep the boat flat. So you'll be very disadvantaged with these guys that come in from overseas, and you see they're 6'4", 120 kilos or something. This is a crew I'm talking about. So I think you really should think of it for the world of bulking up, getting some weight there. The actuals, Dragons have a 285 kilo weight limit, and the good guys are all trying to get on that. They have serious weight weighing times during our regatta so that you can to make sure people don't exceed that maximum weight, because fat is fast, unfortunately, with these keelboats. The big keelboats, the yachts, we haven't got many yachties here, but you know, it does help certain boats, but often you've got the lead bulb and stuff, so you're competing against that. It's not so critical. It's very important for the medium-sized boats. So I think for dinghies, you've got to, if you're sailing lightweight on the Flying 15, so I think you've really got to consider flatter sails and if you just do some serious rig adjustments to sort of compensate for the lack of weight. Yeah, I mentioned the twist before. So if you've got twists in your sails, you're not pointing as high. You can point a lot higher in the harbour and flat water with tight leech. Tight leeches make you point. The theory is if you're thinking of the mainsail, if the leech is tight, the wind is pushing the stern to leeward, it's making the bow go to windward. Makes you point. It's the basic theory in this. So for Lamma sailing, you want to go fast first. Speed is king. Once you've got that speed and you're really comfortable, then you can take some height. And you do it momentarily. I suggest, so put the bow down, get speed, and then I think the next line here is, okay, well, before I go on that, to get speed, some people can't get it. What happens when you can't get speed? It's like there are some things to do. Basically, the rudder could be slowing you down, because often in Lamma, you're in waves and you're hiking out, and you're fighting the helm. The helm's there's a lot of windward helm sometimes when it gets a bit windy, and you've got to reset your rig and compensate for it so that you get the helm right, because you want to be able to steer it. The helmsman person's got to be able to go up or down through a wave. They see the waves coming. They've got to have the helm light enough such that they can turn the boat up if they want to miss this wave, or down if they want to miss this wave. They've got to be able to steer through the waves. It's not a straight line, easy motion steering at Lamma. It's in waves. You've got to be able to wiggle the boat through to keep it going, to maintain the speed. So if you have windward helm, these are some of the things you can do. Basically, you can ease the main, shoot it, gives it more twist. That'll bring the bow down a bit, keep the jib on, or even tighten the jib. I think that's it. Tighten the jib, hold the bow down. So the jib's on, so the pressure in the jib will push the bow down, so it'll balance the boat. Instead of easing the main, you could actually just drop the traveller, so it's the same effect. On dragons and actuals and stuff, we tighten lowers, and that's a basic thing we do in Lamma. We go out, we test before the start, we go sailing upwind, we all hike out, sails on, hike out, go upwind, through the waves, and feel the pressure on the helm. If there's a bit too much pressure, it's not quite comfortable, or tighten the levers. Flying 15s, I don't know what you did. Yeah, winded helm, you're supposed to just ease the main a touch. Your bang might be on a bit too hard. There could be some things to do there. But basically you're trying to get the sails in balance, right? So if you've got winded helm, the mainsail's pushing the boat to leeward and the bow's going to leeward. So you're trying to neutralise that. Again, in flying 15s, that's why I mentioned about this forestay length earlier. If it's quite windy, I think I've read the tuning guides that people do lengthen their forestay if they can. They know it's going to be a 25, 30 knot day. They lengthen their forestay. And the
There are
reason
two sail makers that we use here. One is Gocher and one is Bax. Gocher has the theory that if you set the mast at rate and you leave it there all the time, because the more things you alter, the more variables you alter, the more difficult it becomes to go fast. Bax suggests you drop the top of the mast back as the wind gets up.
Okay, the theory is, and it took me a while to figure this out because it seems to be counterintuitive to everyone else. Everyone else says for the etrils, dragging and stuff, you shorten your forestay when it gets windy. And for flying 15s and dinghies, you lengthen it. And always put more rake in the mast. So I never understood it, but basically, it's the balance of the sails. And when it's very windy, the mainsail is often eased a lot. And so the effective centre of effort of the mainsail goes forward. So that makes the boat out of balance. Because the jib's the same, the jib's still strapped in. So a lot of the mainsails, the leech is twisted off so much that the effective centre of effort moves forward. So the boat's out of balance to the keel. So you get leeward helm. So you've got to actually pull the rig back to balance it back out again. So that's my take on why you rake it in dinghies. And I've seen the flying 15s, they do seem to sail the main out a lot when it's really windy.
Well, sorry to comment, but
Yeah.
Gocher has won more world championships recently than Bax has. And we say Gocher, but with a heavy crew, sets it quite vertical, and with a lighter crew, he recommends going back a little bit.
Okay. So it sort of makes sense, yeah.
But leaving it
Yeah,
there,
leaving it there,
regardless
yeah.
of wind speed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but there could be some other compensating things he does as well, which we don't know. But yeah, that's the theory is all dinghies in Australia used to always hang the mast back.
Same thing we do in Optimus as well.
So
So our Oppie kids are all changing mast rake, and it might be between races.
yeah.
So they might go back, reduce it by a couple of centimetres on their mast
It's a
rake.
dinghy thing, whereas it doesn't. We do the exact opposite in keelboats, which is very confusing.
I think it works really well. In the Hailing Worlds last year, and when we finally realised that we were in 20 knots of breeze, it got us back time to rake the mast. So we raked the mast back, and it was
Felt better?
almost instant.
You feel the helm was lighter.
Yeah, the helm was lighter, the boat was in control, and we weren't losing places on the beat.
But you're using back sails.
Back with back sails, yeah.
And there's a real difference in the cut between Bax and Gocher.
It certainly works with back sails.
Yeah.
We were losing 6 places on the beat until we raked. When we raked, we weren't losing anything at all.
But it could have something to do with the weight of your crew at the time. So there's some other variables coming into it. Okay. They're just guides. Yeah, I think I mentioned this. Yeah, so once you've got the speed, you can then climb it. So often on the etrils I'll pull the traver. As I start steering up, I'll pull the traver off a bit to push the helm down a bit, and push the transom to leeward a bit. Helps it, so I don't have to use the helm quite as much, and take some height while we can. But as you feel the speed coming off, you know you're slowing down. Then you got to pull the helm back and put the bow down again and get going and build that speed again. So steering in waves is really, it's this sort of course. You're trying to judge the waves, and you're trying to not be impeded by the waves, and you take your height once you've got the speed. Speed first. Okay, I mentioned that already. Okay, this next slide here is familiar to you, I guess. This is what we're about. It's particularly about Lamma. This is sort of, we're doing this for local knowledge so we can beat all the overseas guys that come into town for our world championships. This is why we're here. Jamie mentioned he didn't know much about tide and current here. He sort of ignored it last year. I feel quite strongly about it, so I want to try and quickly talk you through a couple of things about the current, and I need this one. Right. In our household, every day we're going sailing, we always want to know what the tide's doing. We always sort of discuss it and make sure we know when's high tide, when's low tide. And you do it in the harbour here, but you also do it for Lamma. I do it for Lamma. And so I suggest you, everyone should look up the observatory, look at the tide charts for the day you're sailing, and see when the highs and lows are. You can get ones for Wagland, and I think you can get something even. Wagland's probably might be the most closest one to Lamma, but it gives you an idea of what's happening. Wagland's out here, by the way, out there somewhere. But if the tide starts coming in, it's going to come through the Dagular Channel here. I'm sorry, Beaufort Channel. This is Cape Dagular here. Beaufort Channel here. And it's going to come around, and it's going to go down the Lamma Channel here. Sorry, can you see that? If you stand back. If I stand back. Sorry. Okay, so tide's coming in here, put the blue at the front. It's coming in here, and it's turning and going down the Lamma Channel here. And it also continues on here, towards the Pearl Estuary. So there is a turning movement here, section. So this is when it starts coming in. It's not too strong. It just starts flowing, and it'll turn. It'll go through the deepest part of the channel. This is here in the centre.
You can draw it if you want.
Okay, I'll try and do this first because it's easy. All right, and then it goes through here. So it really depends where your race officer is setting your racetrack as to how this influences you. And often, for the Worlds, unfortunately, you're not going to be in here. You're going to be out here in the middle, so the current's just going to be going one way, and when it turns, it's going to go the other way. So for a Worlds course, if the race officers are good, they're going to be well out here. So the Lamma Island and the Lamma Channel influence won't be there. Right, so unfortunately, again, China Coast Regatta next weekend. Their race officer will probably take us well out here, near the ships. They're parked out there if you remember, and therefore the flow is just going to go one way, and then 6 hours later something it's going to go the other way.
So what angle?
Jamie's correct that it's not that important if you're sailing right out there.
What angle would the tide be? What bearing would the tide be?
Oh, probably 80 out here, and then reciprocal coming along.
Is there much of a sort of lag effect between high water at Wagland versus when it turns?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I haven't measured it myself, so you just got to look at it. You can see, you look at buoys that are floating here, and you look at the time, and often there's a mid-channel marker in Lamma out here somewhere. Often we're leaving with there. This one here. We often sail past that and have a look at it and see how the current's flowing. It's on the way out to the race course. Just check that
Can I
out.
make a suggestion without?
Yep.
The Marine Department used to publish tidal flow maps.
They used to. They don't anymore.
They haven't done it for about 10 years or maybe even longer. And if you can get hold of a copy of the CD with the 10 years ago flows, and you can choose your area of water that you're interested in, and it'll give you arrows showing direction, and the length of the arrow will show you
Sure. I don't know why they took it off the website, but it's very, very good.
What you have to do
They
is
should stop doing it. I think they started selling it. They used to show it on the website. I think
No,
they started
you-
selling
you-
CDs.
No, you had to buy the CD, but you can't even buy it now.
You can't buy them.
You can't. You haven't been able to buy it for 10 years, I think, or maybe
Not
longer.
that long.
No, it's not that long.
It's not as long as
About
that.
5 years maximum.
Maybe. Well, or whatever. Now, the only thing you can do.
Yockham's got it there.
I've got the CD, the last CD they produced.
So make copies and sell some.
All you can do is get hold of a copy of the CD, look at the tide highs and lows for the
appropriate time.
for that time, or for today, or to when you're racing, and go back into the CD and find the same tidal pattern, and use the charts from that day when you've got the same tidal pattern.
Sure.
And
It
it's-
used to be available, it used to be very good.
May I make a suggestion? A man I know, when he goes out to the start, takes an apple and he eats the apple and he chucks the apple core in alongside the pin and just watches where it goes.
It's a good idea. But it's only there for the pin, it doesn't help you for the rest of the racetrack.
Oh, no, that's true.
Okay.
I
All right.
I don't think he took another one.
Okay, if we So what I'm leading up to is, there are tide charts. They used to be available readily. I used to see them, but I haven't kept a copy myself. So, but I remember reading them. So this is what I'm trying to base my knowledge on what I remember reading 5 or 10 years ago. Okay, so the flow's coming through here in the channel and it's going straight through here. So if you're sailing a more Saturday afternoon race from Middle Island where it's not a world's course, you could be in this area here. Right, and this is where Lamma is affecting you. Sometimes our class championships, they don't go all the way out, they do them in here, and this the current is an issue and you've got to consider it. Okay, what I'm trying to lead up to here is how it affects. When it first comes in, it goes here and turns here as I suggest. But as it keeps progressing, as the tides comes up more, it'll swing deeper and it'll swing deeper into this bay. But initially, it's only really going through here and here. There's a back current going this way. Yeah, so even though the tide's going in here strongly, there's a smaller one the opposite direction in there. So if your race course happens to take you in there, you can use that. As the tide keeps rising, this current will sweep more here, and this will diminish. And there might be a very small one right in close to the shore, but it sweeps deeper as the tide comes in. Similarly here, the current's flowing here pretty continuously. It doesn't vary too much, but closer to shore, you still could have the back eddy going along there. Similarly, if you sail ABC races sometimes, they'll start you in here. If the tide's coming in, the tide's going out there. So that's the way it happens. So you can use that to your advantage. As it turns and goes the other way, of course, okay, everything's reversed. But before I get onto that, often we have a windward mark around here or here or here. Often our race courses, the windward mark's up there. And it sort of influences you tactically where you go and why you go to that windward mark and why you often can hit that windward mark. The tide's coming in, you're getting pushed sideways onto these marks. And the current can be quite strong there, probably up to 1.5 knots. And so you've got to watch your mark roundings. So it really depends on the racetrack, but often the windward marks are these sort of, it's not on the runway, but it's usually just up close to it. You can see the ships going past in front of you, and your windward marks up there. So, because the northeast wind is this way, and you started down here off the headland, and you beat up to here. So this is a racetrack we're often in. Okay, and so if you know the flow of the current, you know it's going to influence you which job you want to be on, which tack you want to be on, going into top knot, going away from top knot. But it's quite a significant change of direction from this to this. Okay. Okay. Any questions on this? Because it's sort of pretty important to see understand the flow.
Do you get any eddies in that Titan Bay? I mean, as a
good
Titan
question. Yeah,
Bay,
good. Forgot about that. Just so people know, this is the deepest part of Hong Kong waters, just here. So there's a very strong flow through here because this is very deep between Beaufort and Po Tok. The Beaufort Channel here, it's got quite a strong flow, and you can see Titan Bays here. It's well protected. So if the tide's coming in here, it's going to be quite strong through the middle, and it's going to be quite strong right against Beaufort Island because there's no bay there. There's nothing to give it a back eddy on that side. But here, there's a very good chance there's a back eddy with a current on this along here. So China Coast races, we often come up here from Windward Mark to TCS2 or something. So often the strategy is to sail. As you sail in here, the current's coming in. You've got to suffer the current coming up here, but you try and hide under Beaufort. So you try and stick it under, sail here. So there's the current. It's probably a vortex of currents going there and there, but this might be not so much current in the middle. So you try and sail up into there. You do one tack across to this shore. You do little short beats up this shore, hiding under Cape d'Aguilar. Then you go and tack out here. You get the big waves just out here, and then you tack right back in here to try and get out of that strong flowing current, which is still flowing strongly. Yeah. So that's often a tactic you see in China Coast Regattas or any offshore races you do, because the current's so strong there, but Titan Bay is well protected and you can really hide from that. So thank you for that question. I forgot to mention that.
That's a good tip.
Sometimes people try and go through here. You've got to be on the. You've got to think that no, the tide hasn't been flowing for too long, or it's going out. You want to go through that gap because if it is going through, it's quite a lot of current there. It's a bit of a big call to tack in and tack up through that zone.
Warwick, does the tide normally flow in that direction during the racing?
It just depends. No, I'm giving you an example of coming in. When it's going out, it's the opposite things happening, right? So it's the exact opposite. Current's going out. If you're sailing up here and the current's going out, you want to be in that current, so you stay out. You're going this way. If you're coming back, you want to go with the current. You want to go with it. Sorry, the reciprocal happens. If the current's with you, you want to get in. So you try and get there as quickly as you can.
So, for kind of the non-world scores, if the current is coming in, it's kind of better to go more to the left to kind of get that back eddy.
Yeah, I'm sort of coming to this later, but I'll do it now. Okay, back on this. If we come back, we'll blow this up, do we?
Yeah. To move it over to the left.
So lost direction.
I'm going to wipe off the blue mark.
Well, it works.
Technology,
Very
eh?
good technology. Okay, so a racetrack. Often the start could be down here.
Surely that's
Wrong way. It's down here.
Yeah.
We're down here.
Yeah.
So, okay, so from the start off this headland. So it starts here, and the wind and marks up. the samples. Right, okay, that's probably it. So the current's coming in here. That's there. Doesn't look right.
The finish is maybe a bit more to the right, a bit lower.
I think it would look marked right.
Yeah. Sorry, the
Turn the board round a bit because it's distorted, first of all.
You've got to move your window mark further
Yeah.
right, was
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here.
No,
No,
It's a bit lower.
That's that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, here.
Now the shipping
I
channel.
can't go on the channel.
East of the north.
Okay. A bit lower as well. Lower, down.
southeast.
Straighten the board and it will help.
further over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, you've got to shift the whole picture to the right.
So look, it's,
That's about it.
okay, so the current's coming in here. It's always if you tack out to the
No, the tide is coming in.
the tide's coming in. Yeah.
The current going out.
Sorry.
Tide's
The
coming in.
tide coming in.
Yeah, and the
the
current
current-
going out. That's what you asked, was it?
No.
No. So let's say that for start off,
Okay.
let's say the current's going this way and this way. Wind mark's here and starting here. If you tack off the starting line and come out here, you're going to get hit by the current. Right? So that's why often people say go left off the starting line. So you come in here, the current could be even with you here, right? Back eddy, so you might be. It should be less anyhow. It's not as strong as what would be going this way. And so you go left first, and then come up here. And as you get up here, you're on starboard tack, so you're going this way. And if there's any push of the current down the channel, it's going to pull you on port tack up towards the wind mark. So it's a good thing. So that's often you see boats come into the top mark on port because that feels good. You're getting pulled up to the wind. Not always, but that's generally the theory why Lamma go left.
Well, if the current's going out, would you go right
Yeah,
to get out? And
Definitely, I would, yes. Yeah.
But you don't know, do you?
I do sometimes.
Very rarely.
I do sometimes. Well, I'll come back to this because it's the other? Yes.
Well, you said that Jamie didn't share a slide on that last year, on the current.
Yeah, he didn't.
Why was that?
I don't know. He sort of made his comment. I saw the slide, presentation on the video, and his presentation was the tide. He didn't think it was that important. And I guess if he's talking out in the world's track, it's not that that important, right? It's only when you get into the Lamma Channel and you get close to the Lamma Island and these other islands that become significant. But once you're further out, the currents usually go one way or the other because you're right out in the flows one direction and the other direction. Often the flow, even further out there, the flow is more what the wind direction's been. It's just a wind-driven thing, but it might be a bit. It depends on the wind. Maybe not so dependent, but it's more that 80, 260 reciprocal wind. Okay, yeah. Again, 2 years ago, this Netchell's Champs, we had a westerly breeze, so this is coming over here, over the land, and the tide was going in, and so the starting line was here, the windward mark was in here, and because the current's going this way, it just paid to go right and come in late the top mark. It was a huge advantage, and a lot of people didn't figure it out. A lot of people were going left and just losing a lot. And then, consequently, once you're going around the top mark, the actuals, some people would jive out here to get the current against them. And so anyone who came here and came down the bottom mark this way, it was a huge gain because the class champs, westerly wind, was held right inside the Lamma bay there, if you like, the Tonga one, and it was very significant. So it was a very easy race to figure it out. Okay, so I'm on the wind now, just to sort of jumped around a bit. Generally, this is what happens at northeast monsoon this time of the year. I'm trying to just generalise. It's not all the time, but usually the wind's around the 50 to 70 degree direction in the morning. That's what you get. If you're going out, you have a look at it. It's often 60. It depends on what time of the morning and how hot the day is and things. But once the land heats up, there is a bit of a shift for the breeze to go right. And sometimes it can go around to 120. Not very often, but often it can go to 80. From 60 in the morning to 80, maybe 85, something. So the wind directions just clicks right as the land heats up, just kicks the breeze to the right. Similarly, later in the day, and often we're not later in the day, often we finish sailing by 4, so we don't see the breeze clicking back. But if you're still out there at 5 o'clock, there's a good chance the breeze is going to be heading back to where it started off with during the day. So it's a good thing to think about, and remember, if it's morning races and it's getting warm, the right-hand side might be not a bad option. Just something to think about. Here I mentioned, we need the chart there before, but if you remember, Jamie mentioned this in his talk too. There's for the nor'easter, the top mark is in close to shore, like the non-World's course I'm talking about. Then the wind could be coming out of Stanley Bay, because you've got Stanley Headland in front, so the wind could be coming one side or the other. So the top mark, the wind could be go a bit left because it's coming out of Stanley Bay and it's splitting around the Stanley Headland. So it just depends where that windward mark's situated. It's something that the wind direction could be the top marker could switch a bit to the left, or it could switch to the right. It just depends on how it gets around the Stanley Headland, if that windward mark's in close. Again, if you're out further out to sea, your windward mark's out under Potoy or something, but well down, it's a different situation. It's not an issue at all. If the racetrack's in close, then it's an issue. Okay, yeah, so the other two directions we get usually is southerlies, which is not so often, and westerlies, which are a bit more common. We had an Etchells class chat a few years ago where it was westerly wind the whole time. So it's quite interesting. Southerly, if you remove that chart and go back to the southerly, the wind's coming just from down and Whaling Ding and so it goes and stuff. So the wind is pretty much not impeded in direction, so it's a pretty steady flow. It's usually quite light, actually, usually a lot of strength for that. The westerly, or sometimes feels like it's a northwesterly, but it's usually a westerly, can be quite strong and puffy, and it's coming over the top of Lamma Island and coming down and spraying out on that inner racetrack that I was talking about before. Yeah, so it's a tricky thing. It's often a good breeze. It's often we can have very strong winds from that direction. I've sailed there once in an Etchells class champs and it was 30 plus knots from that direction. So it was quite interesting. It's flattish water. It's offshore from Lamma Island, but quite windy. So if you think of the wind coming down over a hill, it'll fan out, and so it may come down and hit one place and fan here, the next time it comes down it hits some fans there. And also it can bounce and go there. So you've got to think of the third dimension sometimes, and Nick Burns is very good at this because he's a pilot as well as a sailor, and he thinks of the wind coming down over a hill, hitting the hill, quite strong wind there, a lighter patch there, and then another strong wind further in because it's doing the wind's bouncing. It happens in the harbour here too because the tall buildings, but people don't really notice it because it's a narrow harbour. So that's what I was just talking about there. You've got to think if it is coming down from it's a Mount Stenhouse down in Lamma. You could be on your racetrack. It could be hitting twice on your downhill legs.
Or do you or Nick have any rough guidelines about how long this bounce could be?
Yeah, well, as I said, in the harbour, if it happens, it comes down and then it's on land again the other side. You only see it once, and it's only when the winds are sort of funny directions. If it's coming through the Bloody Moon Gap, it's okay, but if it's coming from more southwesterly or something, or westerly here, it gets very strange. You see someone's doing something. You see it in the harbour more than Lamma, actually. You see someone's getting some good breeze there, and you're there, and you think, why don't I get this? And you've got to think of that third dimension. It doesn't make sense if you're looking just in 2 dimensions.
And what can you do about it?
Well, in Lamma there, again, this westerly situation, you get a good strong gust, and then you might have a light patch, but then there's another gust that you mightn't see in the water behind you, but it comes down and hits you again. So it's usually downhill. It's not uphill really affects you. It's more going downhill. You've got to be prepared for it, because you mightn't see it coming along like a normal gust on the water coming to you. It might just hit you. And so you just got to be quickly adjust your kite setting or something like that. It's a minor thing. It's not going to affect you too much, but it could be there. Right, what have we got here? Right, Jamie touched this as well. Often the waves aren't the same direction as the wind in Lamma. Often the waves seem to be a bit more to the right. It could be because the wind's been blowing in a constant direction for a few days, and that's the wave set goes that way. And then if you're sailing in the morning, as I said, the winds might be a bit more to the left, and so you're often in Lamma you seem to not always have the wind and waves aligned. And so you've got to compensate for that. Okay, so we'll just mention. So in Lamma it seems to me the waves are more to the right, so therefore on port tack you'd be sailing square into the waves. Whereas on starboard tack you'd be sailing side on to the waves. Okay? So starboard tack's quite easy. You quite like starboard tack because the waves are sort of hitting the side of the boat on the starboard, and then you're just going along and the swell's taking you up, and you're doing this sort of motion. It's pretty easy. So the waves aren't affecting you very much, except you get wet bum because you're always hitting the side of the boat. But on port tack there's a big problem. Because you turn around and you slam. You're going square into those waves and you slam and you stop. And we know that's not good. So we've got to make some adjustments, and often it's on starboard tack you can sail higher, and on port tack you've got to sail deeper and try and get more speed. You've really got to stop those waves affecting your boat speed. And doing that, a few things you can do. You can set your boat up differently. Sometimes you might have your lowers tighter on one side than the other, because it's an easier motion on starboard, so you can have a slightly looser lower on starboard. Now on port you have a bit tighter. Often the trick is, for me, I usually use the jib car position, and we move the starboard one back a bit. So on port tack there's more twist, and you might have to travel down a little bit more as well. So on port tack you're sailing freer, you're trying to get speed. Starboard tack you can bring the thing back in. So you have different settings port and starboard in your boat. Something to think about. That's in the world's course as well. It's definitely worth considering.
Can I just check? Sorry, I got a bit confused there. If winds from the northeast and the waves are a bit right of it.
Okay, so let's say the wind is at 60.
Yep.
And the waves are at 80.
Right.
The wave direction is coming from 80. So on starboard tack you're steering 20. Right? And the waves are at 80.
Right.
They're pretty almost square onto you.
Okay.
Right? So on port tack you're steering 100 and the waves are at 80. So you're pretty much square. So 20 down. Okay?
Thanks.
Nice pictures. Yeah, we've talked about that already. Go left. Often it's good, but not always. And as I said before, it depends where they set the race course. If it's a world's course and they've moved out past those anchored ships, you've got an open choice. You don't have to go left. There's nothing to make you want to go left, unless you think there's more wind there, or that's pin end bias is poor or something. It's the only reason to go left if you're out in the world's course. Okay, I've touched on this already. Often, in the early morning, some of those races, the 10:30 starts, if the race course is in close, the starting line's off that headland on Lamma. If you go left, there's very often not much wind in there. You might have the angle all right, but there's lacking pressure. And it's just, I think the wind's trying to build, and it's got to lift itself over the Lamma island. And so underneath there's a little bit of a vacuum there, so there's not a lot of pressure. So I've seen it happen many times. Boats win the pin end start, and they sail off, and they go low and they go slow. And boats further up the line, they may not have the best advantage at the start with the pin bias, but they're in different pressure, and they just sail 20 degrees higher with pressure and just sail away from them. So look out for morning races, the lighter area off that Lamma shoreline. The wind still hasn't built up sufficient strength, and it can't, and so it lifts up to go over. Again, think of 3 dimensions. It's got to lift up to go over the island, so underneath it's pretty slack, pretty lighter winds there. Tactics. Okay, look at the line bias. Everyone has to do that, even though often Lamma you've got big fleets. Line bias becomes more important in big fleets. If you've got a world's fleet of 60, 80 boats, and you start the wrong end of the line, you're giving 59 boats an advantage over you. So you've got to try and work out the line bias, but then don't say you've got to have the pin. Say you want to start down the lower third of the line. Don't be desperate to have the best bar in the world. And then you've got to decide what you think the wind's going to do today. Which way do you want to go up that racetrack? Left or right, basically. And how do you want to approach the top mark? On the starting line, it's a standard thing. If you can get away with not a really good guy underneath you, that's good, because the guy underneath you can affect you and it can slow you down. If he's a pincher or something, you can go slow at the start, and you sit there and you're bobbing up and down going slow. And you want to be able to get your speed and go fast, because you're in waves. You can't go slow and pinch. The other guys, somewhere else in the starting line, they're going to be off. So you've got to have speed. If you do get a bad start, tack away, just accept it. Just tack away, take transoms, get out with some clear air, and tack back again. If you want to go left and you got caught, a little starboard hitch, and go back left when you've got some clear air. If you weren't ambivalent about which side of the course you wanted to go up the first beat, tack left, keep going left until you're happy and you work out your angles and you tack on your shift. Just treat it like you're halfway up the beat. Just accept the fact that you're giving a bit away at the start, but get a clear air. That's what you're going to do. In Lamma, as I mentioned recently, because of the waves, that wind and mark buoy is bouncing around a lot. And I don't know, but a lot of people have had trouble getting around the wind and mark and Lamma, and I've seen it many times. And the ley lines are hard to pick, because as you're sailing along, the current could be pushing you away down, so your ley lines are not quite right. As you get to the mark, you're used to going around tightly close to a buoy here in the harbour, so you try and do the same thing at Lamma. As you go around, the boom goes out, and the boom hits the buoy or something, or the wave gets your side badly, and the hull hits the buoy. So you've got to give yourself a little bit more clearance at Lamma going around the top mark. It's just worth it. Just a little, one extra leg on hitch on port before you go to starboard. It's worth it, just to be clear. If you find once you're on starboard, you're going at the mark, you're making it clearly, well, you shoot a bit, just go faster. It's just, you won't have lost much at all by that. Jamie gave a good point too, is you want to be able to blow that main sheet off quickly and go deep. Particularly in big fleets, you don't want to go around a wooden mark, overlap with someone out wide and have to get out wide on starboard, because you'll be trapped out, on the whole run you'll be trapped outside on the right hand side. Jibing on port, you've got no rights, you've got to be wiggling your way through to get back, to get down to the bottom mark. So try and give yourself a bit of clearance on the top mark as you go around it, so you can blow the main sheet as you go around and go deep straight away as you're hoisting your spinnaker. So try and get your depth, go a little bit above the mark, go around it, blow your main and go deep straight away. Makes it easy to set your kite as well, but it means that you're not giving away lured places to other boats. Other boats come around behind you, they might go to windward of you. That's okay, you can just jibe out and go the way. You'll have some clear air to do that. But often, if windward mark is in close, like I mentioned before, the tide's going, coming up and the tide's going in, you want to do a bear away set most often, because you're going with the current. It's good. If your jibe set, you're going away from that beneficial current. You're getting a bit, but it's not helping as much. It's not all the time, but it's just really depends on the wind direction if you do jibe sets. It's usually better to do a bear away set if you can. Okay. Yeah, just sailing in waves. I'm touching this briefly. You can ask questions on this if you want. Etchells, dragons, we don't get up and plane. We're heavy keel boats, and so usually we're not surfing. So we go deep, and we go very deep, and usually that's the way to go, unless it's winds above 25 knots, then you can get the boat up a bit. Generally, the heavier keel boats, we're just trying to get our depth. We're sailing very square. We've got the main boom out max. We're pole back is quite square, and then heeling the boat to move it a bit, just to try and even get a bit more depth. And then if you're a sports boat to 80 or something, you might, if the wind's up enough where you can get up on the plane, you don't go deep, you're going high and fast to try and stay on the plane. Your advantage of being planing rather than subplaning, displacement sailing, is much better. So you get up on the plane and go. It's usually the best way to go. I mentioned earlier, did a Magic 25 regatta at Lamma, Asia Pacifics many years ago, and Duffy Lidgard, our boatyard manager at the time, sailed low and slow, and he did okay, but he never gained. He
can't go too high.
He went low and slow. Yeah. The guys that went very high were the winners. They kept the speed. And they
keep the speed, but you just need to keep letting off to give you depth.
Yeah, you've got to
build up the speed.
You've got to maintain that. You've got to stay on the plane. Don't drop off the plane.
Well, I'm talking about 3 degrees.
Yeah, okay. It's pretty significant, the difference in angle. Right. For flying 15s, again, I don't know what the changeover, what you get up and plane at, really. Because usually up to 15 knots you'll be going deep, and
it's probably more important to get on the waves. You're surfing more than planing.
Right. Okay. Okay. But if you're sailing at a high angle and going fast, you could be planing and surfing the whole way, sort of thing. I guess I don't know the balance of when it is, but there must be somewhere, some changeover where. Did you notice it having on with any waves there?
Lots.
Lots?
Yeah.
Were the guys sailing deep or were they going high?
I think it was a mixture, but the guys who were surfing gained. So quite often you'd go around top mark of the kite, and a lot of the fleet would just go
dead downhill
for the mark. Right. Other guys would sort of go off left and surf the wave and then jibe back and then try and come in and start with the bottom mark.
And they gained, generally?
They gained. Generally they gained a lot.
I think if you can get up on the plane, you're going to be much better off. If the angles aren't too acute.
I mean, we were planing at certain times. I mean, one day we went up on a standing wave. And we just
Took us the whole way.
We just stayed on top of the wave for 30, 40 seconds. Awesome.
Okay, well, it depends on the class of boat, but usually echoes and dragons and stuff, but you just get slow. Okay, the other thing Tom mentioned, when you're surfing, when you've got waves, even though they might look small, I guess if you watch any of the Finn Olympic sailing or laser Olympic sailing something, you'll see these guys pumping all the time. And you've got to pump all sheets. So if you've got a spinnaker up, you pump your spinnaker sheet and your main sheet. Try and do them both, and try and do the spinnaker guy as well. The spinnaker trimmer, if they're strong enough, they can be doing sheet and guy together. Get a pump there and the main.
But not if you're planing already.
If you're planing already.
If you're planing already, you're breaking rule 42 if you pump.
If no one's looking.
If you're planing, you don't need to pump. Thank you.
You can go faster if you do.
Yeah, some boats have got to bail out downhill. Some have got venturis and do the work for you and get your water in your body. Okay, so it's very briefly on the tactics. And there we go. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Any questions?
No.
I think you covered it all.
Yeah, it's pretty extensive. I tried to just do a very general picture. I think maybe it's worthwhile looking at Google Earth picture or something and seeing the heights of hills around Lamma and Stanley area, just to give you an idea of how the wind could be influenced.
30 times the height.
Is it?
Yeah, the theory.
Okay. It just might give you, if the racetrack's inside there, you've got to figure the land influence.
And the fact that wind coming in over land tends to bend about 20 degrees.
Yeah.
Difficult to work it out, actually. But, I mean, the theory is you go into land on starboard, you get a left, you go over port, you get a north.
In the northern hemisphere.
In the northern hemisphere.
Yeah. I haven't really seen that myself.
Well, it does
We're not close enough.
in
We're not beating up close enough to land, really, except for maybe those.
it happens in some areas up in Shelter Cove. You will see a definite lift when you go up on starboard.
Thank you very much, Warwick.